Mr. Ambassador, in solidarity with the UK, Macedonia expelled Russian diplomat over the scandal and over the spy poisoning affair. Afterwards, Macedonia received a warning from Moscow that if Macedonia becomes a member of NATO, there will be consequences, negative consequences on bilateral relations and also for the whole region. What that can mean for Macedonia? How far could go Russia on it?
Well, I think it's worth just recalling the circumstances of why Macedonia expelled a Russian official from Skopje. And they gave two reasons for that. One was solidarity with the United Kingdom, because they agreed with our assessment that it was highly likely that Russia was behind the attempted murder of two people in the United Kingdom. And the other was a security-based reason about the particular individual there. So that's important context, I think. In terms of Macedonia's desire to join NATO, I mean, this is something which is for Macedonia alone to decide. NATO is an alliance of 29 sovereign states who have all chosen to be part of this alliance for very understandable security reasons. And Macedonia itself has for many years shared that geostrategic ambition. In fact, the Parliament here in 1993 made the decision that Macedonia should join NATO, should seek to join NATO, and every government since then has agreed with that. And indeed, the overwhelming majority of people in Macedonia itself want the country to join NATO because they see that as the best way of securing the country's security and stability.
But after those warnings from Russia, and just reminding what happened in Montenegro and Russian involvement maybe in the Germany before the election, Dutch, what those warnings, how serious should Macedonia take those warnings from Moscow?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the attempted coup in Montenegro, because that fits into a pattern of behaviour from Moscow over some years now, of incidents which either are intended to undermine the rules-based international order or do, by their effect, undermine the rules-based international order. That runs from state-sponsored assassinations, through massive cyber attacks against the Bundestag in Germany, against Denmark, in the Baltic states, through the illegal annexation of Crimea, through the shooting down of a civilian airliner, MH17, over Ukraine using Russian-supplied weapons, and so on. And it is exactly that kind of security threat that an organisation like NATO is very good at supporting its members to counteract.
What if there is no solution? These days in the Greek media we can read some scenarios like membership of Macedonia in NATO in stages. Is that possible? Is there such a plan?
Well, I mean, two things I would say. One is that if there is no deal, then the question about the name of Macedonia is still there. It'll still be something that will need to be addressed by Macedonia and Greece. It'll still be a problem that needs to be worked out, to be resolved. That's one thing. The other thing is that, you know, what happens after this summer, we'll have to see that. All the energy and the focus at the moment is quite rightly focused on what is a realistic and very real opportunity to resolve this once and for all and to move Macedonia forward.
To move forward, the second, as you said, important things are reform process.
Yes.
Especially in the key areas, judiciary, rule of law, and public administration. Have you seen any changes since we have the new government?
Well, I think it's worth recalling at this moment where Macedonia has come from over recent years. And, you know, just a year ago, just 12 months ago, the European Commission was describing Macedonia as a country suffering state capture. Now, the reform effort that the new government, which came in June last year, is doing, is aimed at rolling back that state capture. That's a long process and a complex process involving a lot of work in a lot of different areas. The government set out its plans, as we all know, in the document 369, and they have been working on trying to achieve the reform against that. And Britain has been supporting Macedonia throughout that, particularly in the areas you mentioned, of public administration and judiciary, but also intelligence reform and strategic defence review, and among other areas as well. And we have seen good progress in some areas, less good perhaps in others. So I can understand that a citizen would feel impatient and keen to see things move forward as fast as they possibly can. I think, you know, all one can say is that, you know, the reform process from a situation of state capture to one which is you know, sort of a stronger democracy and a stronger rule of law takes a lot of time, and progress will be made. But, you know, the start has been set out in 369, and the Commission will give their view on that next week.
And the disappointment is there. The citizens are also criticizing the Parliament. Is almost blocked most of the time. Who do you think is the most responsible for that?
Well, rather than focusing on who is responsible for that, I think I would focus on the positives, and there seem to have been recently positive indications that Parliament can take important steps back towards proper functioning, and I would welcome that very strongly. Parliament is, as we all know, the centre point for conversations about democracy and how a democratic state functions. So it really is very important that not only government members of Parliament are able to engage there, but opposition can, because opposition play an incredibly important role in testing legislative ideas, making sure they're as strong as possible, and then overseeing government. And making sure that government is doing things properly in the interests of the citizens. And recent steps, hopefully, will bring us back to a place where that can be done.
Thank you very much for this interview.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.